Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. This is Jennifer. If you are new here, welcome if it's your first time. So today's video is all about a compare and contrast of two very popular drugstore foundations. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Makeup and the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation right here. So I've never really done a video like this before, but I've seen other YouTubers do it and it's really fascinating to me, and I like to see how certain formulas and brands compare and contrast and how they look, and are they similar or are they not. And so I am actually wearing both of these foundations on right at the moment. I've got one on one side and one on the other. Can you tell the difference that I've got two different brands and formulas on my face? Two different colors? Well, I really can't tell a difference, but there are some differences in both of them, and so that's what this video is going to get into today. So before we get started, I want to preface this video by saying a couple little things, little variables that I did before we get started with showing you actually how one looked being applied and then the other one. I've got some B-roll for that. But first of all, just to give you a little backstory on my skin, I am 42 years old and I have fairly normal to dry skin, I would say. It's not super sensitive or anything like that. So before I put on these foundations today, I really only prepped my skin by cleansing it, and then I put on one of my favorite drugstore moisturizers, which I figured we're talking about drugstore priced foundations. We're just gonna stick with that theme and talk about a drugstore moisturizer that I use that I love. This is also by L'Oreal. This is the Collagen Moisture Filler. And if you've been with me for a while on my blog, or I don't know if I've mentioned it on YouTube before, but this is one of my favorites. This is probably the third jar I've bought. It's pretty inexpensive, but it is uber hydrating, so it's good for someone like me. So that's all I put on before I started doing the B-roll for this and putting on the foundation. A couple other things is the tools that I use. I used two foundation brushes that are very similar in the look and their feel, very similar in the way that they are created, the synthetic bristles and that sort of thing. So these are the two brushes that I used. One is a Clinique brush and the other one is an A Design beauty brush. And then also, because I'm a little extra when it comes to putting on makeup, I also kind of switched in between the brushes and my little egg finger sponges that I really like. These are from Real Techniques, little mini sponges. I do love these to get in small crevices around the face, like the eyes and around the nose and around the eyebrows. So I did kind of switch off between the brushes and with the little egg sponges. And then I did put my hair back with two little clips so that you can kind of really see everything that goes on. You will notice in the video that because I have bangs, and for that reason, I don't put a whole lot of makeup on my forehead. So when I put on the makeup, there is a little bit on my forehead, but not a whole lot because nobody sees my forehead because I have bangs. So there's just a few little dots that I put on there in the video, but overall, most of the makeup you see is on this part of my face. So let's get right into each formula and a few little tidbits about each one, and we'll see which one ultimately that maybe I prefer or like better, or maybe I like them both the same. I don't know. We'll see. So let's get started. Okay, so the first foundation that I used was the L'Oreal True Match. The full name is the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Makeup right here. And I used the color N3, which is called Natural Buff. So I used it on the left side of my face, which I did first. And a couple things about the L'Oreal makeup is it does have an SPF of 17. That means it has titanium dioxide in it, which can occasionally cause a little flashback on photos, but I have found I've used this formula for years. Honestly, I've probably had the True Match for over 5 years. I do switch out my shades throughout the seasons because of course our skin gets darker in the summer and lighter in the winter. So right now, with it being September, almost October, I am in the color N3. So the price point for the True Match is anywhere between $10 and $12, which is not super bad for a foundation, and that's for 1 full ounce. On the L'Oreal official website, L'Oreal offers 45 different shades in this formula, and they come in neutrals, they come in cools, and they come in warms, which is great that they offer different options in your undertones, because that is very important when finding your makeup, is that you know your undertone. So I am very much a mix of cool and warm, meaning I am an N3, which N stands for neutral. So I kind of don't go super cool and I don't go super warm. I noticed on their website that they categorize this as medium coverage. Now, I've used it for years and I honestly would categorize it as medium to full coverage. And as you can see as I'm applying it, that it covers up pretty darn good. It's definitely not sheer. And it's, you know, medium coverage. I always do about 2 thin layers of my foundation when I really want to go for it and I'm going somewhere. And so I did 2 layers of each of the foundations in this video. And so the L'Oreal, I put on 2 thin coats and applied it, you know, in between with the brush and the sponge. And I do think it goes kind of medium to full coverage. In terms of my dry skin, it's worked for years. I don't know that I would say it's like uber hydrating, but it's definitely not super matte, which is great, and it works just fine for me. The finish is really pretty. I feel like it does do a good job of covering my pores. Sometimes I would use a primer, but if I prepped my skin nicely, you know, with a toner or something, there's really not so much need for a primer. And today in this video, I did not use a primer because I really wanted you to see how each of these formulas worked. So those are the kind of main points about the L'Oreal. $10 to $12. 45 different shades offered in all sorts of undertones, SPF 17, coverage medium. I would definitely say medium. I would almost say medium to full coverage for the L'Oreal. Okay, now moving on to the Wet n Wild. This is specifically the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. Today I used it in color Buff Bisque, and it is considered a light medium neutral color is what it says on the bottle. Now I picked this foundation up just recently, literally within the past couple weeks, because I had seen it all over YouTube and all the YouTubers were saying that, oh my gosh, it was fabulous. It worked like a department store foundation. But the price point is so dirt cheap for a foundation. It is $4 to $6 on multiple websites. The L'Oreal and the Wet n Wild are the same ounces. You know, go figure the prices. One's $10 to $12, this one's $4 to $6, but they're both for 1 full ounce, which is pretty good for a foundation. The Wet n Wild does come in 20 different shades on their site. I didn't notice that it was categorized by undertones, which is actually really helpful on the L'Oreal side, not as helpful on the Wet n Wild side. I actually ordered mine from Amazon, and I just kind of guessed that the Buff Bisque would work for me, which, you know, maybe it worked that I already own the L'Oreal in Natural Buff, and I just figured Buff and Buff kind of gonna go together. Anyway, the Buff Bisque actually works great for me right now. With it being almost October, it really matched my skin tone really, really well. So 20 shades in this one, not bad. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, nowadays, I think people like to see like 40 to 50 shades, but you know, for the price point, 20 is pretty good. What they really hang their hat on, I noticed for the Wet n Wild Photo Focused, is that they guarantee no flashback photography. So when you're taking a picture with a flash or no flash on iPhone, you should never have those little white particles or white spots pop up on your face. Now, from what I know in my research and years as a makeup artist, is that flashback is typically caused by SPF because it has titanium dioxide in it. Well, the Wet n Wild has no SPF in it, so there's no titanium dioxide that would ultimately flash back. So that's probably why you don't get flashback in this foundation. But they're right. I've never seen anyone. I've taken a lot of selfies and such. The coverage that they say on their website that the Wet n Wild is that it's medium to full coverage. Most of the YouTubers that I was following along that made me ultimately want to buy this all said it was full coverage. I don't know that I would really say that. I did put on 2 coats just like I did the L'Oreal, just so everything would be super even in terms of what I was doing and not manipulating anything. I put on 2 coats of it, and honestly, it's no more full than the medium coverage of the L'Oreal that they said theirs is. So I think it's great. I think it's just enough coverage. I'm not a super, super duper full coverage gal because I want my skin to look like skin, just better, which it does that. It definitely makes it look really good. So I guess the last thing about the Wet n Wild and the L'Oreal that would be different, Wet n Wild is cruelty-free, and apparently L'Oreal is not cruelty-free, but the Wet n Wild is. But that's it in terms of the things that I think are most important of both. As you can see on my face, you really can't tell the difference. I mean, I split my face right down the middle and did one on one side, one on the other, used the exact same brushes, the exact same sponges. Felt like I did the exact same application as good as I possibly could. And honestly, I don't see much of a difference. I mean, I've always loved the L'Oreal and thought that I was gonna stick with that was gonna be my favorite, but in terms of like pricing and, you know, with times being a little tough right now and pandemic and everything, you know, if you're able to find a cheaper beauty item that you like and it works really well, then that's probably going to be your choice. So the fact that you can get the Wet n Wild for $4 to $6, I think that's pretty awesome. Now, it might be harder to find your shade in Wet n Wild, so you might want to go for the L'Oreal because they have 45 different color options, which is amazing. But for me going forward, I guess I would say if I had to choose an inexpensive foundation that, you know, I just wanted to throw on to go to like Target or go have like lunch with a friend or something, and it's not some big fancy shindig that I haven't been to in a while anyway, I would probably choose the Wet n Wild at this point because I do love the way it looks and it's super inexpensive, and the cruelty-free thing is kind of a big deal for me nowadays. I would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe have you used one or the other? Have you used both of them? And what were your opinions on the L'Oreal and the Wet n Wild? For me, I think it's super fun to be able to see, you know, your options out there, especially when it comes to drugstore formulas, because there's so many foundations out there. And I feel like it's one of those categories that women just get really confused about and they're not sure which ones to pick. So hopefully if you've heard as much about the L'Oreal True Match and the Wet n Wild Photo Focus as I have, maybe this helped you make up your mind as to which one you would want to get next time you're out at the drugstore trying to find that perfect foundation. And if you have any questions for me that maybe I didn't answer in this video, because sometimes, you know, I start rambling to a camera and there's nobody behind there, I kind of lose focus and I don't really know, did I answer everything that people would want to know about it? Feel free to leave me, you know, a question in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And of course, if this is your first time to my channel and you haven't subscribed yet, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. That would mean so much, and definitely go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. I would appreciate it. All of the products that I use, the sponges, the actual foundations, will be linked below, actually description of the video, if you would like to go check them out. Even my current favorite inexpensive drugstore collagen moisturizer will be down there. But that's it for today, y'all, and thank you so much for being here, and I will see you on the next video. Bye. But I think that was pretty informative.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of it, but it seemed informative on your reaction.
I think it was pretty informative.
You're getting better at this.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm kind of amazed that I could probably walk around town with 2 different formulas of foundation on and nobody would be able to tell. I think that's kind of amazing.
I can't tell.
I can't tell either. I've on 2 different brands, 2 different formulas of foundation, and they literally look like the same thing.
Now you need to wear 2 different types of shoes and 2 different socks.
Now I need to add blush.
2 different earrings.
Because it's bothering me that I've been looking at a camera without any blush on, and you know how much I love blush.